I now ask Khaled Hassan to conclude the case for the proposition.
Good evening, everyone. Please raise your hand if you've been to Israel. Please raise your hand if you've been to Palestinian territories. Please raise your hand if you speak Arabic. Right, I'm an intelligence guy. This is what I do. I gather intelligence. I work with officials. This is my background. I was actually involved in negotiations. I worked with one Egyptian president and two former ministers of foreign affairs in Egypt. And let me tell you, what you just said now is categorically untrue. UNRWA has been attacking Israel for over a year, and no one said anything. The peacekeeping mission has not been keeping the peace. But let me tell you, and actually start with this. Unlike the overwhelming majority of you, I actually grew up in Egypt. I was born to two Muslim Egyptian parents. I grew up a Muslim. And I was taught by Muslims. I lived in Egypt until 2016. I was born in Cairo in 1990, and I understand Islam. This is a book here that was bought to me by my father. He read me this book as a child, me and my brother. This book was actually accepted and authorized by Egypt's censorship authorities, which censor every book that actually criticizes the Egyptian government. What does this book say? What does this book say? It says Jews are pigs. What does this book say? It says Jews are apes.
Point of information.
Jews are inferior.
Point of information.
Jews are inferior to slavery. Jews are inferior to donkeys. This is what my dad taught me. My dad was not a radical guy. He was like everyone else. I've never seen him even pray. He hated politics. But this is the norm. This is what I was taught. When you talk about President Sadat, this is President Sadat's book. President Sadat says in this book that the Palestinians refused to engage in any negotiations. When he had the negotiations and the peace agreement with Israel, he invited the Palestinians. He said, you need to come and you need to talk to us and you need to talk to Israelis. He went to Jerusalem and he had peace with the Israelis. What did the Palestinians do? They said he's a traitor, he's a Mossad agent, he's blah, 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 blah. That's precisely what happened. Now let me tell you what happens here. The Palestinian Authority and the Palestinian leadership is the greatest barrier to peace. I was the greatest barrier to peace. I hated Jews, I hated gays, I hated women, I believe that women were actually inferior, and that is how we're taught. That is the law. In Egypt, the law says that if you're married to a woman, she's not allowed to travel overseas until she actually gets my permission. So if my English wife lived with me in Egypt and she wanted to go back home for Christmas, she wouldn't be allowed to travel without my permission. That's the law.
Point of information.
That's the same law in Palestine. That's the same law in Syria. That's the same law in Iraq. This is the culture. This is who we are. Now, I converted to Judaism. This is what I did. This is my choice. I get called a Mossad spy because I converted to Judaism. When I went to Israel on a British passport with a Muslim name. I went to Israel, I went to Jerusalem, and guess what? I went to Tel Aviv and I protested against Benjamin Netanyahu, this really evil, horrible guy. I couldn't protest in Egypt. I couldn't protest in Syria. I couldn't protest in Lebanon. This is the culture. This is what you're going for. Let's ask our friend here, Mr. Andalusi, if he actually believes that Jews are apes. He's a Muslim scholar. This is a book. Now we need to understand. Let me just finish, please. Let me just finish, please. Let me finish, please. This is what we're told. He has a video on his YouTube channel that says refuting feminism because he doesn't believe that women should have equal rights. He believes that homosexual people should not actually be treated as equals. But let me just finish on a few things. Let me just finish, please. When we talk about Israel and how we treated Jews, when we expelled 80,000 Jews from Egypt, we took their property, we passed a law that says it is a crime to actually try to sell your property and take your money while you're going away. So we took their property, we converted the second oldest Jewish cemetery in Cairo, which I have seen, my school was right next to it. We converted this to a landfill to dump waste in it. These are photos. I can share this on my Twitter and you can all see it. But I worked with ministers, and this is what I'm telling you. Now let me tell you a few things. President Sadat, talking about Palestinians, what does he say? I went to Jerusalem to offer the whole region, peace to the whole region, but unfortunately some parties, referring to the Palestinians, have chosen confrontation over peace. Now, President Hosni Mubarak, who ruled Egypt from about 1980 to 2011, what did he say? The Arab world has to look at the reality of the situation. Clinging to unrealistic goals and refusing dialogue will not help the Palestinians. We must work towards a pragmatic solution if we wish to see peace. And then he says in 1993, it's time for the Palestinian factions to unite and support the peace process. Rejectionism only strengthens Israel's position and weakens the Palestinian cause. And again, in 2000, the Palestinians missed an opportunity. The path to peace must not be through rigid positions, but through compromise and understanding. The violence undermines their aspirations. This is President Mubarak who fought the Israelis in the 1973 war, and who is actually one of the most ultra-nationalist patriotic Egyptians. Now let's look at King Hussein Jordan. There will be no solution if we do not recognize the reality of Israel. The Palestinians must learn to compromise if they seek peace and stability for future generations. Let's look at someone else. The second King Abdullah of Jordan. If the Palestinians do not come to the table in earnest, we risk another generation of conflict. Peace is a two-way street, and opportunities cannot be ignored. Now let's look at someone else. Let's look at our good friend, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. It's time for the Palestinians to accept the offers that have been made. It's time for the Palestinians to accept the offers that have been made, because offers have been made. But we must make peace we must make peace and come to terms with the reality of Israel if we want support from the Arab world. And then he says the Palestinian leadership must stop refusing every peace initiative. This is the crown prince of the country that actually refuses to recognize Israel. This rejection only isolates them and hurts their people even more. Now, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed of the UAE, what does he say in 2020 after the Abraham Accords? Our agreement with Israel is a step towards regional stability. The Palestinians cannot continue to reject every attempt at peace. It's time to work towards a constructive solution. Now, you see this, and it's very clear. You see, homosexuality is criminalized in almost the overwhelming majority of the Muslim world. Women do not have rights. Minorities do not have rights. My Coptic friend in Egypt was actually expelled. Her house was taken from her, and her church was burned. This is the reality. When you talk about Israel, I went to Israel. If you haven't been to Israel, do not talk about apartheid. My good friend here, I was talking to him before this, and I said, would you like to go to Israel? I can arrange it for you. And he said, oh, no, I can't. Because he knows if he goes...
Oh, that's an outright lie. I don't care. You cannot put words in my mouth.
He said he cannot go. Why? Because everyone knows if he goes, the Egyptian national security would actually detain him and would actually investigate him and would actually interrogate him.
Take my point of information.
You know how that happened with me. That happened with Dalia Ziada, an Egyptian who only said Hamas is a terrorist organization and I support Israel's fight and it's just war. What happened to her? She had to flee Egypt because she was threatened, because she got death threats, and the Egyptian government refused to offer any kind of protection. So if you want to talk about this, if you want to talk about the whole conflict, I suggest you actually get your information from somebody who knows the region, somebody who worked with prime ministers, with leaders, including James Moran, Laila Moran, the MP. That was her dad. He was actually the ambassador of the EU. In 2014, I met him in Egypt to promote the Arab Peace Initiative. What did the Palestinians do? They rejected us. They refused to engage. Thank you very much.